Well, good afternoon, and thank you for being here today. Leonard Fortner, Shane Kendall, LaShawn Thompson, Dino Walker, Shamar McElroy, Christopher Gray, Noni Baptiste Kosoko, Monte Stinson, Christopher Smith, Alexander Hawkins, Samuel Lawrence, Chandre Delmore, Davion Blake, Michael Anthony Holland, and Travis Landry. Ladies and gentlemen, we wanted to read the names of some of the people on that list of 28 that have died in the Fulton County Jail since 2022. Because a lot of people don't appreciate the face of death, the face of going into a jail and awaiting whatever your sentence is, and it being a death sentence. A lot of people don't appreciate that, but we do. And that's why we're here today. My name is C.K. Hoffler, and I have the honor and the pleasure of representing, and I'm going to call him Leonard. That's who I represent. He's not here with us, but that's who I represent. But his mother, his father, his brother are here today as well. And you're going to hear from his mother because we need the country to understand, and Fulton County, the community in Fulton County, to understand the face of what happens in the Fulton County Jail. It shouldn't have to take 28 people to die in 2 years for us to understand what happens in Fulton County Jail. And so we've assembled today and wanted to thank the Southern Human Rights Center for this magnificent briefing, because, ladies and gentlemen, we had a briefing like no other briefings. And I've been around as a lawyer for almost 40 years. I have to pause because that means I'm a certain age, but 40 years, and I've been in some briefings, but this was an amazing briefing, an astounding briefing, an eye-opening briefing of stakeholders in both the civil rights and human rights, private sector and public sector, because we needed to understand better how we can refuse to be denied and representing the fate of those unfortunate incarcerated individuals who are in the Fulton County Jail awaiting their destiny, who may die. Because what we have to really think of, a lot of people say, well, this is, if they're in jail, they did something wrong. And maybe they did do something wrong, but that's not a death sentence. You shouldn't have less than a 50% chance of living through an experience when you go to jail. When you go to jail, there are many people who are falsely arrested, falsely accused every single day. Not just in Fulton County, but throughout the country. But it should never, ladies and gentlemen, be a sentence for death. But that, unfortunately, is what it is becoming in the Fulton County Jail. And we're here to say no, no more. It's got to stop. So this magnificent team at the Southern Center for Human Rights, because this is a human rights issue, first and foremost, led by the incomparable, the magnificent Terica Gansey. I call her Madam President because, you know, she's our Gabwa president. That's what I call her, president for life. But we're here today because they gave us some information that, quite frankly, we have opened our eyes further. Leonard Fortner, and you're going to hear more about him, is the face of those people, those unfortunate individuals in the male facility. He was killed. He was stabbed to death. He was a member of the LGBTQ plus community. He was HIV positive. He was an extraordinary individual, and he was somebody's son. He was someone's grandson. He was someone's uncle. He was someone's cousin. He was someone's friend. And when he was arrested for what would have been a misdemeanor, could have been a misdemeanor, he met his untimely death in a violent, despicable, inhumane way. And while, yes, there was somebody who stabbed him with a shank, someone stabbed him, but it was the conditions at the Fulton County Jail, the leadership of the Fulton County Jail, the administration of the Fulton County Jail, that provided an environment where inmates or people who are there can make shanks out of the deteriorating structure. And the solution is not to build a $2 billion jail, ladies and gentlemen. So we felt that it was important to have the stakeholders to come here today, because enough is enough. How many class actions do we have to file on behalf of individuals who have rights? How many lawsuits do we have to file? How many discussions need to be had for there to be a change? And if the community doesn't stand up and say, not one more person, because let me just tell you, it could be your son or your daughter. It could be your niece or your nephew. It could be your grandchild. It could be any of us that stand. So we're not here to pass judgment on those who may have made a mistake. We're here to seek justice and to give you the face of someone who suffered, a family that is suffering because of conditions that are inhumane. This is a human rights issue, ladies and gentlemen. Human rights, civil rights, human rights. I've visited facilities throughout the world because I used to do international work. And when I tell you that the conditions that I'm aware of here are worse than in some countries that are ongoing development, that we criticize for their conditions, we criticize them for their inhumane conditions, well, we are unfortunately right up there and surpassing them in the lack of humanity in how we treat the least of these, who happen to be in a situation where they have no choice. They don't have, Leonard didn't have the choice to say, oh, I'm going to jump to the left and jump to the right, go up, go down. He didn't have a choice. He had to stand there and be killed. I know this is difficult for his family to hear. But ladies and gentlemen, we have to at some point say enough is enough, and that's what we're here today to talk about. So I want to bring up, we have a few people going to speak, and some of these people you all know. Gerald Griggs, an incomparable attorney, a phenomenal attorney, civil and criminal defense attorney, a civil rights leader. He's the president of our Georgia NAACP. He has his own firm as well. You're going to hear from also attorney Tiffany Roberts, who's here at the Southern Center for Human Rights. She's the public policy director. She's the one that led the briefing today, and when I tell you, it was one of the best briefings I've ever had on any issue. And then we're also going to hear from attorney Michael Collins. He's an attorney with Color of Change. These are people who are stakeholders in this fight. Been in this fight for a long time. You don't come into a fight, come to the table without doing your homework and having a team. We're also going to hear from, when I think of someone who has changed how young black men are perceived in this community, how young black men are groomed in this community, I think of Nwale Davis, from Davis Bozeman, because he has shown us how to do it. He's been a fighter for the least of these. He's a civil rights fighter. He's a criminal defense lawyer. He's a civil lawyer. I think we worked on a medical malpractice case together. But he's an extraordinary human being who has heart and who has been fighting these fights for a very long time, and you're going to hear from him. And then we're going to turn and shift our attention very briefly, ladies and gentlemen, to Texas. Texas is here in Fulton County. Texas is here in Georgia. Why? Because Leonard Fortner, this is Leonard Fortner. He's from Texas. His family's from Texas. He came to Georgia thinking this would be a land of opportunity, a better place. By the way, college educated. Howard University. HU. So you all need to understand what we're talking about here, and this is the face of this incredible young man that we're going to talk about. And so the attorney who is co-lead counsel, he and his firm, that brought this case from Houston, Texas, is here, Troy Pradia and Jonathan Cox. We are NBA fellows, work together, fighting justice together, and I'm so grateful. You're going to hear from him. And then finally, you're going to hear from Leonard's mother. You all need to hear from Leonard's mother. Don't take it from me. Of course I'm an advocate, and I fight. But you need to hear from his mother. Understand what it means to be in Fulton County Jail and what happens to families and friends and the circle of love when something like a stabbing for somebody who's just waiting for his sentence, waiting to find out, with a misdemeanor charge at best. You all need to hear and understand, because then you will understand why enough is enough is enough is enough. No more. So Gerald Griggs, I'm going to give you the floor, and then Mr. Davis is going to come up, and then, Ms. Roberts is going to come up, Mr. Collins is going to come up, and Mr. Davis, and I'm going to just kind of direct it behind the scenes before we go to Texas. This is Texas right here. Texas.
Unfortunately, we've been here far too many times. Thank you to C.K. Hoffler. Thank you to this family for the opportunity to stand before you and to advocate on behalf of the oldest civil rights organization in this state, the Georgia NAACP and the Atlanta NAACP. But we've been here too often. Tiffany, we've been here too often. Mallory, we've been here too often. So many others have been here too often. And I thought that after seeing a man eaten alive by bed bugs, change would come. And so after LaShawn Thompson, we have Mr. Fortner, who was stabbed to death in a pretrial detention facility. Let's be clear. Everybody in the Fulton County Detention Center are innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So we're talking about pretrial detention. And for the Fulton County Detention Center, Rice Street, to be falling apart, to have weapons fashioned from the building is atrocious. It's worse than atrocious, it's inhumane. And so again, we've come before the county commission, we've had conversations with the sheriff, we've spoken with the district attorney, we stood in front of the judges in Fulton County. This is not acceptable in the birthplace of civil rights for us to have human rights violations for our citizens. And Leonard was a citizen. He was merely accused. He should have had his day in court, not dying in the Fulton County Jail. And so, as the president of the Georgia State Conference, as the president of the Atlanta NAACP, we stand shoulder to shoulder with this family demanding change. But many times people talk about what that change looks like. And it's not building a $2 million facility. Billion, I'm sorry, $2 billion. I'm raising a newborn, so sometimes the numbers get confused. But $2 billion facility. Because again, as we were briefed earlier by Tiffany, and she will go deeper into that, Attorney Roberts will go deeper into that, it didn't solve the problem the last time when we built a new facility. It didn't solve the problem when citizens rose up and say, don't rent out the Atlanta Detention Center to the Fulton County Sheriff, because that wouldn't solve the problem. And consequently, why do we still have boats or people sleeping on the floor in the Fulton County Detention Center after we've rented out the Atlanta Detention Center? What really is the problem here? You're housing citizens who have all of their constitutional rights, and the most important one is the right to life, the right to be protected, the right to go into the Fulton County Jail and walk out of the Fulton County Jail. And so, again, this has to stop. So on behalf of the NAACP, we're speaking directly to the commission. Y'all have to do something about this. How many more checks are you going to have to write to families? How many more times are you going to see protests both at your chambers and at the jail or in the streets? It's ridiculous. So on behalf of the NAACP, you need to do something about this. Do something about this immediately. No more deaths. 28 deaths? 28 deaths? How many more people have to die? So again, the ball's in your court. You need to do something. You need to do it immediately. And so I look forward to Tiffany, Attorney Roberts, having a robust conversation about how many times we've been here and what needs to change immediately.
Good afternoon. My name is Tiffany Roberts. I'm the Public Policy Director at the Southern Center for Human Rights. We are a nonprofit law firm that has for almost 50 years advocated for an end to the criminalization of race and poverty. We do that through litigation, and we also do that through public policy work. As our Public Policy Director, I have to just remind us of the history of the center was always rooted in a very robust and firm relationship with the private defense bar, the faith community, and grassroots organizing communities who understood the relationship between our criminal legal systems, chattel slavery, Jim Crow, mass incarceration. We represent the communities who, despite all of the government's efforts, survived. And we don't always have the privilege of representing people whose family aren't mourning some loss. And so we are here in support of this family and this community, because even one death in a jail is one death too many. We have successfully sued Fulton County about their jails 4 times. And in fact are in a settlement right now with the Fulton County Jail over the treatment of women with mental health conditions in Fulton County's care. This is an all hands on deck moment. Fulton County has not taken seriously the mandate to decarcerate. Georgia is an outlier state. As crime rates drop nationally and locally, the city of Atlanta, Fulton County, and Georgia insist on arrest rates trending upward. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we laid out a plan that would allow local governments to deprioritize certain offenses, certain misdemeanors, so that our jail population could be diminished, and it worked. But as soon as fear-mongering actors started to implore our local governmental leaders to dispense with that plan and lock more people up, that's exactly what they did. And what we are seeing from Fulton County, from Atlanta, and many other actors is that fear-mongering has taken priority over facts, over humanity. Fear-mongering has taken priority over the affording human rights to every person who walks in and out of the Fulton County Jail. Yesterday, we had a press conference on the steps of the courthouse, calling on the Fulton County Commission to reject Sheriff Patrick Labatt's plea to build a $2 billion jail. And I'm grateful that the County Commission has not allocated funds and is not asking for a sales tax increase to pay for a jail that would be more expensive than the country's most expensive prison. The sheriff wants to build a facility for people who have been convicted of nothing that is more expensive than the most expensive facility that houses people who have actually been convicted of crimes. What we are asking from the broader criminal defense community, from local grassroots organizations, and from our elected leadership is to step away from political gamesmanship, to step away from the vanity projects that they are proposing with respect to these new facilities, and to take seriously national best practices and policy recommendations that makes it possible for people to fight their cases from home. It has been done elsewhere. It can be done here. And what I will say in closing is that Southern Center is engaging quite regularly with international bodies, including the United Nations.
Yes.
And what is happening here in Georgia is absolutely embarrassing. And moreover, it is cruel and it's unsustainable. And we won't see the communities grow to become the Mecca that Atlanta claims to be if we don't listen to families like these whose loved ones came here looking for the promise of the Black Mecca and in fact found the myth of the Mecca is alive and well in Georgia. Thank you.
Thank you, Tiffany. My name is Michael Collins. I am the Senior Director for State and Local Government Affairs at Colour of Change. Colour of Change is one of the nation's largest online civil rights organisations that focuses very heavily on criminal justice reform. Thank you, CK, for having us today. I want to say thank you to the Fortner family and extend my condolences for their loss. But unfortunately, I have to say that this was no accident. This was not some unavoidable tragedy that happened. It's something that we've seen, unfortunately, many times before, and it's the result of policy decisions that are made by prosecutors, state legislators, commissioners, and it's because we've spent the last 2 years not focused on real solutions, but they've spent the last 2 years focusing on this mythical $2 billion jail. A jail that, as Tiffany mentioned, would be the most expensive pre-trial facility that the country has ever seen, one of the most expensive facilities in the world, and it was never going to happen. And it's not going to happen. And we've spent the last 2 years in the advocacy community, alongside our partners, talking about real solutions. Decarceration. We can safely reduce the jail population, we can reduce the number of people being held pre-trial, and we can do so with the objective of making rehabilitations to the current facility, lowering the staffing problems that they have at the current facility, and avoiding tragedies like the one that we are discussing today. Now, I will say that, you know, on some level we feel that they've finally started to listen to us. Some of the policymakers are moving away from this $2 billion jail fantasy. They have started to reduce the jail population through the work of the DA and the public defenders. They have been able to do a blitz on the jail and improve maintenance in some areas. But unfortunately, as we know, it's often too little, too late. And you know, the legislators, the Fulton County Board of Commissioners, are now realising what we told them 2-3 years ago, that there is no path forward for building a $2 billion jail. Yesterday, we announced a new coalition in opposition to the $2 billion jail facility, and we put out a report from our allies at the Prison Policy Initiative that was very detailed and debunked the case for a $2 billion jail, principally saying that we don't have the staff at the current facility. How are we going to have staffing for a $2 billion facility? It's an incredibly dangerous proposition, this idea that you would build a new facility, put more people in it, and you haven't solved some of the underlying issues. So, you know, we've been proponents of reducing the jail population. We've talked about the need to discuss renovating the current facility, and as I said, you can do that by reducing the population, moving people around, and rehabilitating some of the facilities. We want the DA, we want prosecutors, we want the public officials to keep going on this process. We also want the DA to dispense with moving too much with cases in the grand jury. And you know, I'll end by saying that we do not need a new jail. What we need is a new approach to justice, and what we need is a seat at the table as we discuss these solutions, and we're ready to do that. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Maoli Davis of the Davis Bozeman Law Firm. I'm proud to be joined by my law partner Harold Spence to stand with this firm and this family here on these hallowed grounds of the Southern Center for Human Rights, this space that has been built to fight for those who have no voice or their voices have been muffled. And so we give thanks for the Southern Center for Human Rights and the work that they continue to do to keep this at front of mind while the rest of us go about our days eating and drinking and enjoying life. They continue to recenter us on this very critical and important issue as it relates to people who are locked in cages and left to die, and that are put in situations where they don't recognize their own humanity. And so we stand here not because we have any financial gain in this litigation. We stand here not because we have any blood relations with this family. We stand here because we have a moral obligation to stand here. We stand here because I had two sons who graduated from Howard University. So we stand here for them as a classmate, as a parent of a bison. We stand here with this family and with this firm. And as we spoke to these interns earlier, we encourage them to continue to imagine a new and different kind of world. A world where Leonard's life mattered. That's the world that we have to imagine. That's the world that we're working to build for. And so as we work to build where Leonard's life matters, there's work to be done. We encourage anyone who's on the sidelines to step into this battle and this fight with this family, with these two law firms that have come together from Houston and Atlanta to fight for this family, because this fight is really about the soul of Atlanta. Atlanta has lost its soul. Lost its soul in that this young man could come here in search of a dream and end up in a body bag. That's how devastatingly sick Atlanta's soul has become. And so the only way to heal a soul like this is for the people to stand together, to come together, to embrace this family, to let them know that what happened to their son is not Atlanta. It's a segment of our community that we have allowed to let this jail and let this criminal justice system go uncontrolled without humanity inputted. So again, our deepest condolences. We will stand here, we will walk, we will march, we will, whatever it is that these attorneys would like us to do, whatever the Southern Center would like us to do, we stand ready. And I'll end with this. The sad part of this for us is that despite all of the resources that we have gained as a firm, we're one of the largest African-American law firms in the state of Georgia. There's so many deaths, we can't take another one. Like, we don't have the capacity to take another one. That's how many deaths are happening in these jails across the state of Georgia, but in Fulton County in particular. That says how much of a crisis it is. This is a state of emergency. And so we thank you for calling us together.
A state of emergency indeed. So we are going to now turn our attention to Texas. Because after all, it's Texas that brought us here today. I want to recognize a few people that played a critical role with Trina Heathington right there, Ricky Panayoti, Makai Johnson, and all of the young, we have a group of young clerks that are here at the Southern Center for Human Rights who are the next generation of people who we are expecting to carry the mantle, and all of the team here and the hundreds of people that work tirelessly day in and day out, whose face you never see. But we wanted you to see the face of Leonard Fortner. So I'm going to bring up Troy Pradia, one of my National Bar Association members, great members out of the great state of Texas. He hails from Houston, Texas. He's a great civil lawyer. He's a great human rights lawyer. He's a great civil rights lawyer, and he's an extraordinary individual.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Troy Pradia. I'm with the Cox Pradia Law Firm. We're here with my partner, Jonathan Cox, and we thought it'd be best to bring C.K. Hoffler in on this case. She's a tremendous lawyer, and we knew that she could help us get the job done. I want to put a face on Leonard Fortner. He was a 2013 Howard grad in mass communications. He was educated. He's from the educational family. His mother, Donna Fortner, was a counselor and a teacher for 33 years in Dallas ISD. His father is in the automotive industry for 40 years. They hail from Monroe, Louisiana. They've been married 42 years and been in DeSoto, Texas for 37 years. Now they only have one brother, one son left, which is LaDon Fortner. He's also an educator. He teaches special education students, and he's committed, just like his mother, to educating people. This is a travesty. It should not happen to any child. And Leonard, yes, he was a child. He was the son of Donna Fortner, who's going to come up and talk to us real soon. We want to say that this is a human rights issue. We're in the home, the bedrock of civil rights. And Martin Luther King would not want to see this happen in his hometown. We have to do something about this issue. Not just today, we should have done something about this several years ago. I'm from Harris County, Texas. We have the same issue in Harris County. The jails are overcrowded. They're not putting money into the jails, and people are dying at alarming rates. In Harris County, there have been 60 deaths in the jails in the last 3 years. That's astounding. So this is not just an Atlanta issue, Fulton County issue. This is a United States issue. The Justice Department has investigated Fulton County, and we hope that they join with us to make things right. This family is suffering, they're grieving. All of our hearts are going out to this family. And we know that at the end of the day, that Atlanta can help bring justice to the community, not just the black community, but the entire community. We want to put Atlanta on notice that we're from Texas and we're here to fight with C.K. Hoffler. We want to do our very best for this family, and we will do it. I promise you that we will take care of you guys. I want to bring up Donna Fortner. She's going to talk about her son, her baby, and I want her to come up right now.
Thank you, everyone that brought this together for us. I am Donna Fortner. This is my son, Leonard Terrence Fortner. Leonard's father is here, and Leonard's oldest brother is here. Who was Leonard? Leonard was creative. He loved writing. He loved helping others. Leonard was passionate about the rights of others. That's who Leonard Fortner really is. When we lost Leonard, we lost a lot in our family. We lost an uncle. We lost a younger son. We lost a brother. We have grandparents that have lost a grandson. And we have siblings that have lost an uncle. Leonard meant so much to our family. And to come here and be killed in the fashion that he was, this is the reason why we are here. We are here to carry the burdens of others, to make sure no one else gets this type of information overnight or receives this death sentence of their child. That's the reason why we're here for Leonard. Leonard is with me, his soul, his spirit, his laugh. I see him all the time, and I thank God for that, because we're here to do God's will.
That's right.
That's our purpose here. We bring greetings from you from Texas, from Monroe, Louisiana, from the Fortner family, and the Stovall family as well. But above all, we miss Leonard. We truly miss Leonard. But Leonard will not go down in vain. God promised that, and God's will be done. Thank you.
We're gonna take some questions. But before we do, I just want to close with thanking Michael Perez, an extraordinary lawyer here in Georgia, who's, we are team building. We have built an incredible team. Latif Odwala Owu as well, to represent this family. And this is a coalition. This is a coalition. Because when you see the face of what has happened in Fulton County Jail, you know the kind of fight that we must have has got to be one of coalition. Donna, Mrs. Fortner, there really aren't words that we can express, but there's a fight that we can and will fight. So we want to thank you. If there's anyone here that I haven't recognized, I recognize you, but because there's so many people who have poured into this effort and poured into this family, for them to get on a plane, to walk that plank, that's what it is. You walk the plank on behalf of your child. That's what they've done. Didn't want to come here, didn't want to be here, didn't want to meet them under these circumstances. But you need to see the face of what's happening. These are real people, real families, real folks, and that's why, one more time, I want you to hear Leonard Fortner, Shane Kendall, LaShawn Thompson, Dino Walker, Shamar McElroy, Christopher Gray, Noni Batista Soto, Monte Stenson, Christopher Smith, Alexander Hawkins, Samuel Lawrence, Chandru Delmore, Davon Blake, Michael Anthony Holland, and Travis Landry, just a few people who, like Leonard, they could be here, there could be a picture of them in the same way, with the same family, speaking of the same thing, because they had not yet been sentenced, for the most part, awaiting sentencing. So we thank you again, and for those who are tuning in, we know this is being live streamed as well, and for those who are tuning in, we thank you for caring enough about this family, caring enough about this issue. And I know we'll entertain some questions. We have to be very careful. We can't discuss litigation strategy. We can't discuss many of the facts, but we can discuss a number of things with you, and we would certainly know that because you all are accustomed to dealing with litigation, that you will respect if we can't answer some of the questions.
The attorneys in this room have represented many of the people that are on that list, and still there has been no change. We've seen settlements, things of that nature. As you said, the county has taken some action, and yet you still stand here today. What other avenues can you pursue if, in fact, we don't see change in coming months?
Well, what we are doing is elevating, escalating our efforts and building this kind of coalition in a very, very robust way. There have been, every single lawyer here is a iconic lawyer, fought a number of fights. But what we're doing is building a coalition that is much broader than we have in the past, because we all recognize that there's got to be a difference in our approach, in our strategy, litigation and otherwise. So that's the difference this time, because we must have a different result. We cannot pay lip service to what is happening and continues to happen. So when you ask what's going to change, what's different, there have been a lot of settlements, a lot of high-powered, extraordinary lawyers, but we're all coming together now in recognition that there's not going to be any more room for the political stuff that may be happening. There's only going to be room for change. So we have a new strategy, an elevated strategy, and escalating our efforts to try to make a major difference. And what happens here can happen other places, but we've got to start with Fulton County.
Can you give us an update on the litigation right now, just on the case, where it's at?
Certainly. Well, we were prepared today to file a lawsuit, actually, before this press conference. After the briefing today and after our coalition building and a few things that we've decided to do collectively, which we cannot share with you, we've decided to hold that, but I would say certainly within the next couple of weeks or so, there will be a lawsuit.
Is that a class action suit? If you could give us more information on that.
I can't give you more information on that right now, but what I can say is that we will make sure that you know, so that you are able to, connect the dots. What's important for us is to ensure that we have accuracy in what we're doing. And if a lawyer tells you what they're going to do in litigation, I don't know what to say. But that's not what I'm going to do. Because I want it to be where you can rely on exactly what I'm saying. And there have been some very, very significant developments this morning that have caused us to pause in filing a lawsuit that was ready to be filed.
Against them?
You see, this is another question. I'll tell you, definitely against whom is going to be the sheriff. No, we know that. But, and the sheriff's been put on notice. This is not going to come as a surprise to the sheriff of the county. But there might be some other surprises, and we do need to ensure that we cross every T and dot every I. And again, it's as a result of an incredible briefing that we had here at the Southern Center for Human Rights, where we want to refocus a few things so that we get it right and that we launch a robust campaign that won't just include litigation.
Now, what other
I'm sorry, go ahead.
what other steps might the county be able to take, DA's office, that type of thing? What other steps can they take in addition to what you all said that you are seeing some progress in to help ensure that people like this young man who possibly committed a misdemeanor won't wind up in jail while he awaits his day in court?
That's a great question to ask. And I will tell you that Color of Change and the Southern Center for Human Rights have detailed exactly what they need to do, exactly what they should have done, exactly what they knew that they should have done and failed to do. And now we have a longer list. We're developing a longer list of that. So they knew before Leonard died, before Leonard was killed in their facility, and all these other people were killed in their facility, they knew exactly what they should have done. Making incremental progress is not good enough because people are still getting killed. So, forgive me I wasn't yelling at you, I'm just saying that. My passion is because it's just, this is not acceptable. They know, and we're not interested in lip service. We're interested in action and change. They know exactly what they need to do. There are studies out there that tell them exactly what they need to do. 20 years ago, I don't want to say to the day, but almost to the day, there was a report that came out that told them that forecast exactly what's happening today. We can connect all of those dots. We know that. They know that we know. We know that they know that we know. I hope that answered your question.
As far as Leonard and his time
Yes.
at the jail, can you tell us how long he was at the jail before this incident happened? And I don't know if this is a question that the family can address. Had he expressed any fear while at the jail? Had he mentioned this particular inmate who was arrested and charged with the homicide? Can you guys elaborate on
So
any of
what I
that?
can tell you, I can't tell you a lot of, address a lot of the questions that you have. They're excellent questions. But he was there since January of 2024, and he died April 4th of 2024. But you know, there are people who were there, like the person who stabbed him to death for almost 4 years, as I understand it. 4 years. 4, the number after 3 years, in a county jail. I'm not sure in what country in the world that would ever make sense. What county in this entire United States that would ever make sense, but it does not make sense in Fulton County or anywhere that I can see.
But had he expressed any concerns about being there, and did the family reach out to jail about him being scared being there or concerned about conditions?
So I can't address all of those things, but we do know that that there were some concerns expressed previously. But all of the information that you're asking for, I can't really address right now. We don't have a lot of the information, but some of the information, if we did have, we just can't express right now because of where we are.
Was he actually charged with a misdemeanor, or because Gerald said it could have been a misdemeanor? So what were the circumstances behind what placed him there in the jail?
So as I understand it, he was, the criminal property damage is what he was there for. Property damage. Property damage. You know, you damage some property. And so what that would have meant, if he would have been, if there would have been an indictment, if there would have been anything like that, is unknown, really, in terms of a lot of those details.
I did have a question about the jail, the $2 billion. Everyone said they're opposed to the building of the jail, the spending of that money. The jail is falling apart. People are literally, the inmates are literally using, you know, whatever they can that comes out of the wall to build shanks, make shanks, things of that nature.
Right.
Are you all opposed to the building of a jail at all, or is it the cost of the jail? If you could just speak to that.
Well, it's not, this concept, this approach of building a new jail, that's happened in the past. And that's how we have these facilities. And facilities can be enhanced. So it's our understanding that our sheriff in Fulton County, as opposed to fixing a problem that he knew, directed it not to be fixed because he wanted to be in a position of ensuring that a $2 billion facility be built. So where one could have fixed the facility, where one could have done things to prevent these types of deaths, murder within the jail, the sheriff, in his capacity, we got to put it where it is, made decisions that ultimately led to Leonard's death and the death of others. So we understand the jail is dilapidated, but there could have been actions taken to not have it in those conditions, but they weren't taken deliberately, intentionally, so that this $2 billion jail could be constructed. We understand that, we know that. That's not acceptable. Because there could have been a prevention of these things had they put the resources in it and done what they could have done sooner, as opposed to forcing the hand and trying to say, oh no, we just need a $2 billion new facility, and not addressing the inherent structural problems, the staffing problems, the problems that are squarely within the power of this sheriff to address, and not addressing that. You can look at the history of this sheriff and see some of the, because there's a lot that you all have written about it. There are a lot of reports that address this. As I said, the Justice Department had to come in because of the bad conditions and because of the management of this facility, these facilities in Fulton County. So I think that while one isn't opposed to fixing up and bringing it to standard, absolutely, but we have a facility, but building a $2 billion facility is not the solution. The taxpayers are going to have to pay for it, by the way.
So just piggybacking on what Deidre asked about the class action lawsuit, possible class action lawsuit, you read the names of the people who died in the jail twice, right?
Just some people.
Just some. Do you think it would be more powerful to have other people join this lawsuit, other families join this lawsuit once you decide to file it?
Well, I think because we're not, I can't commit to what we are and are not going to do, but I do think it's important for every family to be able to be an advocate on behalf of their child who has been killed in Fulton County Jail. And many of them are represented by some of the lawyers here. So I do think it's important for there to be every single person who has died, because all of the circumstances are nefarious. All the circumstances are just what we're seeing as in Leonard's case. We know that. We have the evidence. There is evidence. And so I think it is important for there to be advocates for those people and those families.
And I just had one more question.
Yes.
What's your timeline, your time frame as far as how long the county, those that you are demanding action from, have to get back to you before you will make that next move?
Oh, it's not a question whether they get back to me. That's not the issue. But them getting back to me before we file something and do what we're going to do. They've had a whole long time before Leonard Fortner was killed to get back to somebody, to get back to those families, to do something different, and they did. So I'm not waiting on them to get back to me, to get back to us. We're going to do what we're going to do. Now, we want to see some action. Don't get back to me. Do something. You know what has to be done. I mean, how many reports do you have to have? How many advocacy, how much money has to be spent telling the county, showing the county and all of the stakeholders what must be done? So at this point, this young man who did not deserve to die, just like all of those other people, we're advocates on his behalf, but it doesn't turn on what the county getting back to me. That's not the factor for me in this prospective litigation. All right. Well, thank you very much.